I suppose I did fire you and Jordan, and I told you that I could get a show if you would listen to me and pay attention. Tom Smith was the type of man you noticed as soon as he entered a room because, in addition to having a humorous voice, he also made broken cars visually appealing. And in the process he made them chuckle. This explains why so many people thought he had it all. But the speed at which things altered was not captured by the cameras. Now, everyone asks the same question. Where did the man who appeared to be invincible go wrong? The response is much more devastating than anyone anticipated. All of the information regarding Misfit Garage. The Discovery Channel hosted the reality show Misfit Garage, which was a spin-off of the well-liked program Fast and Loud. After leaving Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas, Texas, a group of gifted mechanics decided to launch their shop based on the concept. Thomas Weeks and Scott McMillan joined Tom Smith and Jordan Butler as two of those mechanics. The focal point of the episode was the new business they started together, Fired Up Garage. Produced by Pilgrim Studios and executive produced by Craig Puliajan, Richard Rawlings, and Eddie Rowater, Misfit Garage debuted on October 13, 2014. In addition, Craig Kaufman was the Discovery Channel's executive producer. Since Tom Smith's life before the cameras is just as fascinating as what we saw on television, let's now discuss him. Tom spent a significant portion of his early years in Georgia after moving there from Ohio, where he was born. Tom was inquisitive and energetic even as a little youngster. He enjoyed disassembling objects to examine their inner workings. And he never gave up attempting to put them back together even though he was unable to do so most of the time. He never shied away from making mistakes and had an innate willingness to learn. Tom was also a good reader and writer. He even finished third in the state spelling bee competition while attending a nearby high school in Georgia. However, Tom was never the kind to blindly obey the law. He enjoyed doing things his own way, which frequently led to problems. Tom's love for vehicles began at an early age when he started working with his uncle at the family garage. He made a choice that turned into one of his most memorable childhood tales when he was around 10 years old. Tom's uncle owned a Pontiac Granville from 1974. Tom made the decision to ride it one day. Unfortunately, as he was still a young child and had no prior driving experience, this choice did not work out. When the police pulled him over for joy riding while he was driving, he crashed straight into the police car rather than stopping. Fortunately, no one was gravely injured, but Tom carried that experience with him when his uncle gave him a traditional beating when he arrived home. Tom moved live with his grandmother when he was 12 years old. He returned to Ohio after high school and opened an auto shop in a seedy area of the city. He was surrounded by Chevy fanatics at this time. Tom chose to purchase a 1967 Ford Galaxy XL convertible rather than follow the pack. And he gave a memorable response when asked why. He said, "I bought a Ford because I am not going to ride over a cliff with you in a Chevy." Tom was married and had a child by this point. Carl Parsons, a skilled technician renowned in Ohio racing circles for his ability to maximize engine performance, was one of the most significant influences on Tom's life as a young man. Tom had potential, so Carl took him under his wing and taught him the ins and outs of auto maintenance and construction. Determining what went wrong with an automobile was one of Tom's favorite things to do since he also loved fixing difficulties. He once said that he feels sorry for mechanics nowadays since they have to diagnose technological faults, which is very different from the simple, beautiful engines of the past. Tom continued by saying that even when you perform a basic brake service, you still need to reset a computer. He missed the vintage appearance and craftsmanship of vintage motors, even if they appeared like works of art when you lifted the hood. Before he finally found his way to Texas, Tom spent some time traveling and even worked on television towers. He developed his mechanic talents at Driver's Edge, where he worked on hot rods for almost 4 years in Texas. He gained a reputation for making cars more drivable and boosting performance to previously unheard of heights. Tom strives to push himself to the edge and produce better work with every build, therefore he never settles for mediocre work. He worked on a wide variety of vehicles over time. However, the 1965 Shelby Cobra and the 1964 Ford Thunderbolt were his ideal vehicles. Have you ever wondered why? Well, these vehicles are the epitome of style and power. When Fast and Loud started appearing on Discovery, it was a turning point in his path which ultimately brought him to Gas Monkey Garage. Because of his unique personality and sense of humor, Tom was cast in a show that attracted millions of people. But when he left the garage and the program, his time at Gas Monkey was over. Tom, however, did not remain down. When Misfit Garage was established, he soon found another opportunity and joined the new fired-up garage crew. Despite the fact that the most of his co-workers were Chevy aficionados, he remained loyal to his beginnings as a Ford man. However, Tom's appreciation for a wide variety of automobiles was evident whenever he discussed the Chrysler Finn car era in the late 1950s and early 1960s. He praised Virgil Exner's designs, stating that they were unique in their style, lines, and flow. In case you were unaware, in addition to his proficiency in automobile sales, Tom once said that he was previously an excellent drawing and now regards himself as such. He would occasionally use around 200 Sharpies to create enormous works of art that left people in awe, and his artwork has filled full walls in friends' homes. Tom Smith's development following Gas Monkey Garage. The popular show Fast and Loud, which ran on the Discovery Channel for 14 seasons from 2012 to 2020, features the custom car shop Gas Monkey Garage. In addition to its owner, Richard Rawlings, who has been a constant fixture on the show, the company became well known for its unique car creations. Remember how Tom used to work for Gas Monkey Garage? The tale of Tom Smith's departure from Gas Monkey begins in 2014, when he and Jordan Butler experienced a life-altering event. Tom later informed TMZ that Richard Rawlings' Rolls-Royce was the initial source of the issue. To the great annoyance of their shop manager, Tom and Jordan let a guest shoot a photo close to the Rolls. Things swiftly got out of hand after the manager approached them harshly. In response, Tom cursed at the manager, and he and Jordan were fired shortly after. They were causing havoc at the shop, Richard later told TMZ. Tom, however, had a different perspective. He thought there was a better way to approach the matter. Jordan actually claimed in a Discovery Channel film that it was the only time he had ever been let go in his life. Additionally, he called the manager's behavior utterly irrational. He went on to say that it didn't make sense to him to be fired for simply calling your employer a name. The cast of Misfit Garage and the staff at Gas Monkey have long been at odds, as fans are aware. This rivalry has been a hot topic since the 2014 premiere of Misfit Garage. And they are still curious about the source of all the animosity. Given that both shops worked on related projects, it would be simple to assume that it was merely business competition. In actuality, though, it went deeper than that. But for Tom Smith, losing his job was a game changer. He even likened himself to others like Bill Gates, who were dismissed before they achieved success, and once declared it to be the finest thing that had ever happened to him. Jordan and Tom made the decision to change the course of events. They therefore teamed up with Thomas Weekus, another skilled technician, and Scott McMillan, who had previously worked at Gas Monkey. They founded Fired Up Garage together. And the result of that decision was the new series Misfit Garage, which debuted in October on the Discovery Channel. Even though opening a new shop seemed simple, Fired Up Garage had to overcome several obstacles right away because it was difficult to create from the ground up. It struggled to draw customers and live up to their expectations because it was smaller than Gas Monkey and lacked the same resources and fan following. The situation was further compounded by the criticism and anger they received from ardent Fast and Loud fans. After Tom and Jordan were fired, the conflict between the two garages only grew more intense because it became personal. The founders decided on Fired Up Garage as a statement, with the initials forming FU, which many interpreted as a direct message to their former boss. The fact that these individuals didn't match Richard's ambitions for Gas Monkey was also made evident by the title of the show, Misfit Garage. Through verbal sparring in interviews and on social media, the rivalry spread to the general public. Richard Rawlings and the members of the Misfit Garage once accused one another of being dishonest and acting unethically. Due to the drama created by the conflict, which fans eagerly watched, these debates increased the attention that both shows received. In some respects, it also contributed to the success of both series since viewers were curious about what might happen next. There were even rumors that each garage was trying to steal workers from the other. Who will be the first to jump ship was a topic of much media conjecture. Richard Rawlings was apparently concerned about Aaron Kaufman, the well-liked mechanic from Gas Monkey, because many people thought he may depart to join the staff at Fired Up Garage. What made Tom decide to establish a new garage and leave? Let's look at the depth of Tom's passion for automobiles. Tom Smith's passion for automobiles. The metric system was intended to scare and cause havoc, thus it would never have a metric bolt in it. Have you ever witnessed a mechanic get so enamored with vintage vehicles that he may lose it over a single bolt? In this episode, Tom Smith was tinkering on an old engine and venting his aggravation. Additionally, his speech clearly conveys his personality and the things that are most important to him. He started off by saying that he had to take something out of the motor. He went on to talk about how he was taken aback when he learned about what he thought was an uncommon circumstance. Tom talked of walking out into this vast region, proudly referring to it as tremendous, and looking for replacement parts before deciding that something was amiss. I say several times as he stressed his concern, he repeated, demonstrating his intense feelings about what he was witnessing. The 16mm bolt or fitting on the motor he was working on was the problem that bothered him. This was very unexpected, Tom said, because a metric bolt or metric thread should never be found on an ancient American engine. According to his observations, motors from that time period were constructed using typical American sizes, like 916, rather than metric measures. He wasn't merely making a technical observation when he discussed this. It also reflected his viewpoint on how the automotive business has evolved over time. He said he found the metric system scary and thought it confused mechanics accustomed to the old-fashioned American method. He felt that cars from the past reflected a particular level of skill, and the use of metric parts seemed like an extra hassle. Tom continued his amusing analogy by stating that he had heard his mother call the metric system the devil, which is why he called it something that might destroy everything. He used dramatic language to convey his frustration, stating that this might be the start of society collapsing, as though the blending of measurement systems represented a lack of order in the field of mechanics. He often used humor and sarcasm to illustrate his points, therefore this exaggeration was a feature of his personality. Tom offered a few more rambling, emotionally charged remarks after ranting about the metric system. He brought up messages regarding renal bills, being a good person, and sticking to specific principles, which implies that he was thinking about how minor adjustments can occasionally seem connected to more significant problems in life. He then returned to discussing the offenders, stating that they would be located, drowned, resuscitated and interrogated. This demonstrates his propensity to blend comedy and annoyance while elucidating a problem. He finally joked about being transferred to California to cease the tirade. Then, to lighten the mood and remind everyone that his reaction was not motivated by anger, but rather by his dislike of seeing something unexpected on a classic engine, he made a casual comment about lunch. Tom's point in this tirade was that he appreciated conventional methods of auto repair and construction. Furthermore, it contradicted all he thought those cars stood for to have metric fasteners on an ancient American powertrain. Cars were more than just machines to Tom. They were historical artifacts, because it felt incorrect to include contemporary components like metric measurements. Tom Smith's tragedy. You may be asking why we are here and what has happened to Tom Smith throughout the years. Tom Smith is undoubtedly one of the most distinctive characters that viewers have encountered on Misfit Garage. And with each installment of the show, this became evident. He is a humorous and vivacious individual. Furthermore, despite the fact that he is frequently described as a little out of the ordinary, his ability as a mechanic is undeniable, as seen by the several garages he has worked at over the years. The opportunity to work on a 1970s AMC Gremlin, a huge undertaking for Tom at the time, was one of the high points of his career. Most mechanics would have rejoiced when the automobile was completed. However, Tom was dissatisfied with how it looked, which prompted him to attempt something different. As an experiment, he chose to convert the Gremlin into a makeshift boat. After doing the job, he drove it directly into a lake. Tom was excited, but his excitement quickly changed to disappointment as he watched the automobile sink because he had worked so hard on that project. Tom was more than just a skilled mechanic. With his witty one-liners and gags, he also made every space come alive. Show viewers frequently comment on how his humor set him apart. Furthermore, Tom has always been inherently humorous, so this was never a staged act for the cameras. He is regarded by many as the most humorous member of the Misfit Garage cast, and his background as a professional stand-up comedian has given him that side. You heard correctly. Outside of the garage, Tom has given performances in a number of comedy clubs, such as the Dallas Improv Club, and occasionally he has even stepped onto the stage at the Christie Comedy Club in Manhattan. As everyone is aware, the rivalry between Fired Up Garage and Gas Monkey Garage, particularly the friction with Richard Rawlings, has been a major topic of conversation throughout the episodes of Misfit Garage. Viewers thought this was a real conflict for a long time, and it provided the show a significant subplot that many people found entertaining. But a lot of what spectators witnessed was staged for TV, since the drama added intrigue to the performance. Due in great part to Richard Rawlings's involvement in the production, the majority of the major scenes were meticulously prepared for the camera. Indeed, in addition to being the proprietor of Gas Monkey Garage, he served as executive producer, and was even recognized as the show's creative force. Richard owned the building where Fired Up Garage was set up, and gave his approval for many of the decisions made during the filming process. This meant that Richard maintained authority over the space, and had significant influence over what transpired on the show, despite Tom and his team's desire to seem independent of Gas Monkey. Top Speed reports that Richard was also in charge of overseeing the financial side of things, which allowed him even more control over every facet of production. You're going to learn if the name Fired Up Garage was actually a statement if you were also curious. Since many fans thought the moniker was a direct jab at Richard Rawlings, it was frequently discussed. For Tom, however, the truth appears to be more intimate. The fact that Tom scribbled, "Our customers have been satisfying us since 1973, on his toolbox as a boy, demonstrates how much he cherished the prospect of opening his own store someday. The word Fired Up held significance for him, since he even dreamed of naming it FNU Garage. He used the moniker he had dreamed up years before when he finally got the chance to build a new garage after leaving Gas Monkey. For Tom, the initials FU generated a lot of debate, but it also brought back memories of his early years, including the dismissal of two of the most well-liked members. Supporters thought that Tom Smith and Jordan Butler's poor work performance or tardiness were the reasons behind their departure. However, TMZ reports painted a different picture. In their account, Tom and Jordan were sacked for permitting a fan to take a picture close to Richard Rawlings' Rolls-Royce, which was a major grievance for the management. Things became heated when the manager confronted them, and Tom used strong language to tell him to calm down. Both men were fired a few hours later, because of how poorly this was received. Fans were taken aback by this incident because Tom and Jordan were valuable team players, and had sizable fan bases on the show. Following their exit from Gas Monkey, Tom and Jordan decided to join Misfit Garage instead. They wanted to prove to the world that fame and fortune were not the only things that mattered, and that a bunch of skilled technicians could create incredible automobiles without the help of a large company like Gas Monkey Garage. They founded Fired Up Garage in collaboration with Thomas Weeks and Scott McMillan. After that, Misfit Garage created a new dynamic in which the Misfits attempted to establish themselves by taking on difficult constructions, enabling viewers to witness their ingenuity and diligence in each episode. Because Richard Rawlings owned the building where Fired Up Garage was located, there were additional scenes in the show where he seemed to collect rent. Now many would think that a garage as well known as Fired Up Garage could easily profit greatly from the television automobile restorations. The reality, however, is rather different. It is quite expensive to run a firm like this. Additionally, Fired Up Garage would need to finish at least 50 complete automobile projects in that time frame, in order to make about $100,000 a month from restorations alone. The time required to finish each structure makes this impossible. Additionally,
The effort required for these initiatives is significantly greater than the profit when you take into account the quantity of work and resources involved. Then, how does Fired Up Garage generate revenue in reality? Like other television programs, the audience that watches the show generates the majority of the revenue, rather than the work that is displayed on camera. Because businesses spend a lot of money to have their ads seen during a broadcast, the more viewers a show has, the more valuable it is to marketers. An average of 1.3 million people watched each episode of Misfit Garage, which attracted advertisers and allowed the program to make a substantial profit from these commercial agreements. Kevin Clark, a vital member of the Fired Up Garage team, was one of the celebrities who rose to popularity on Misfit Garage. In contrast to many of his co-workers who were up working on real automobiles, Kevin's love of cars began when he played with toy cars. His father even thought that cars were just a Western conspiracy, and his family had little interest in them.